Okay, Melissa, we are now officially live. So welcome to the Green Deal stage. I already mentioned your name yesterday, actually, in another talk by Lena Hartog about crowd action. I don't know if you know her actually, but
No, I haven't. Oh.
she's part of the slow fashion season campaign.
Oh, we do know that.
Right. So
Yeah.
there was a lot of overlap actually. So I was really looking forward to your talk as well, and she might even be watching right now. So
Awesome.
you are the co-founder of Project CC, right? Which
Yes.
aims to make it a bit easier to find fair and sustainable clothing.
Yes, that's
Um,
true.
and you started studying economics and business, I read, but now you're
Mhm.
working full time on this, on a sustainable fashion search engine. So
Yes.
I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about yourself, about your journey to get here. And I was also hoping that you maybe could share some more practical tips with us for people who want to be more aware of what they're buying and how they can do this.
hmm So the talk is gonna dive into how to buy more sustainable fashion, or like what to look for in sustainable fashion. But yeah, how I rolled into it. I was studying economics and business. I really liked fashion. I really liked shopping. But then I saw a documentary, The True Cost, and it's about the Rana Plaza, which is a factory in Bangladesh, and it collapsed, and there were a lot of people who died there. And then I discovered that behind my piece of clothing that I just buy for fun, that there was this whole story behind it, and that it wasn't a pretty story, but it was like a story of exploitation and about yeah, like harming the environment.
It
So
was
I
an
was
eye opener for a lot of people, I think.
yeah, a lot of people in sustainable fashion, they started with because of the true cost.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it is a really I really recommend to watch it. It's on Netflix, I think.
Okay, good. Well, I will let you get to it, and I will remove myself from the stream.
Awesome. Okay, so this workshop is going to tell you about what the garment labels in your clothes can tell you about sustainability. So every piece of clothing has this tag inside of it that provides some information on how and where it's produced. And we're going to dive into it and see what it can tell you about sustainability of the product. So first of all, why would you care about your product being sustainable? Well, we have gathered or not so fun facts. It's because, like I already said, the fashion industry is one of the most exploiting and one of the most unsustainable industries in the entire world. And there's a lot of reasons why that is the case. And these facts we found it quite shocking. So, for example, to make a simple white T-shirt from cotton, it already takes 2,700 liters of water, which is obviously a lot. But also, if you know that cotton is mostly produced and manufactured in dry areas, you can already imagine the impact of it. Other thing is that 16% of all insecticides is used for growing cotton, whereas cotton is only a small percentage of all the things that are being farmed. So 16% is actually a lot. Now the other thing is that 10% of the clothing we buy ends in the trash without being worn. So this is, of course, a direct result of fast fashion, because fast fashion is like the system of fashion where every week there's new products in stores, and it's being offered at such a cheap price that you don't really have to think a lot about buying it. So we don't value our clothing as much as we used to. So this is really an interesting system the fashion industry created. Another thing is a piece of clothing is on average only worn 10 times before it's thrown away. But then we always have a lot of people who say like, yeah, but I wear my clothes way more often. But if you think about like your favorite shirt, then of course you wear it more often. But we all have those pieces of clothing that we wear once and then we feel like uncomfortable wearing it, or it's just a bit too tight or a bit too loose or a bit at your color, and then you just leave it hanging in your closet and you don't wear it at all. And a lot of us just throw it away then. They don't recycle, reuse, or even sell it. They just throw it away, which of course is quite unsustainable if you imagine there's a whole story of how it's being made. Another fact is that 1/3 of the environmental impact of clothing comes from washing and caring for them, which I found also really interesting. So I always thought that the supply chain and everything would be most impactful on the environmental impact of clothing, but then actually a lot of it comes from how you handle your clothing and then how you treat it. So I thought that was really interesting as well. And then also 99% of all clothing is not produced under fair working conditions. This is according to the Clean Clothes campaign. And like 99%, yeah, obviously is a lot. And only 0.6% of the price of a piece of clothing ends up with the person who manufactured it. So if you imagine that you can already buy t-shirts from €5, then you can just calculate how little the people who actually makes the item gets. And you can also imagine that it's not enough to live from. So obviously, when you see all those facts, you want to buy sustainable, but it's not so easy. So for example, these two blouses are around the same price range. They look around the same. They look around the same. Which one of them is sustainable? Like, how could you tell? But there's many aspects to sustainability. And for Project CC, we identified 5 main aspects, which are eco-friendly, vegan, locally produced. For us, that is when it's produced in Europe, because we are based in Amsterdam. There's good cause, which means that a brand is giving back to the community where they produce, or giving to charities, like some part of their profits. And there's fair trade. So to find why when a product is sustainable, you can look into the fair label and see what it tells you. So one of the things it tells you is the country of production. It always says made in and that country name. So the majority of the items are made in Asia, so China, Bangladesh, Vietnam, India. And there's been a big backlash about production in Asia. For example, a lot of people were like, after Rana Plaza factory I mentioned earlier, they were like, oh, I'm not going to buy anything from Bangladesh anymore because then it's not made in a fair way. But that's also not a solution, of course, because if they don't have the jobs in the clothing industry, then they don't have a job at all, or they have worse jobs. But that's also not what you want to do. You want to make sure that it's being produced in countries where they already have this clothing industry, but then in a fair way. So boycotting isn't a solution for me. Other countries and are a lot of fast fashion companies move their factories from Southeast Asia to Africa after the Bangladesh backlash. But that's also, it's around the similar working conditions. And it's like if a product doesn't say anything about being sustainable or how it's being produced there, then you know it's not good. But you also have products that are made in Europe. And for us, this was quite, we thought it was always sustainable when it was in Europe, when it was produced in Europe. Then, of course, we did some research when we were adding brands to our website. And then we found that there's a lot of stories as well taking place in Europe of human exploitation while making fashion. One most recent is in the UK, in I never know how to pronounce it, but Leicester, which is this city in England. And they were producing, the people who were working there, they were forced to work even though there were COVID outbreaks and they weren't allowed to wear masks or anything. They didn't get the opportunity to take the 1.5 meter distance. So it was quite a harsh environment, also very unsafe for them to work there. and they were working for, I believe, £5 a day, which is not a lot if you have to live in the UK. Actually, it's quite expensive there. So yeah, for Europe, the same thing goes as for Africa, as for Asia. Look, if a product tells you more about how it's being produced. Also for the United States, a lot of products are made there as well, and also there, be sure to have more information. It doesn't automatically mean that it's being produced in a good way if it's being produced in a Western country. Another thing that's being shown on your care label is the material where it's made from. There's many different types of materials. We divide them into different subjects. So the first one is natural, which are the materials that are made without chemics, and then there's synthetic, and that's the one that's being made from synthetic materials and often uses strong chemicals to make the product, the fabric. So natural doesn't automatically mean that a product is sustainable as well or environmental friendly. So you have a good example for this is cotton versus biological cotton or organic cotton, sorry. So cotton, like I already said, it uses a lot of water, and it's being produced in, it's mostly being produced in quite dry areas. So it's the impact of that water usage is quite big. So what you saw then is that a lot of brands, in their effort to be more sustainable, they would switch to using organic cotton. And it's a good thing in that sense that it doesn't use as many pesticides, because I already said that cotton uses around 16% of all pesticides used worldwide. So organic cotton doesn't use pesticides. Because they don't use pesticides, you need more of the cotton to make one shirt. So in the end, in a lot of cases, you have to use more water to be able to make the same shirt because you need more of the cotton. So in that sense, it's like it is more sustainable because it's using less pesticides. But on the other hand, it's already it's also using more water. So it's quite of a trade-off. You have bamboo. Bamboo is also a lot of people think it's super sustainable, and sometimes it is. It can be super sustainable because bamboo uses a lot less water than cotton. It's also antibacterial, so it doesn't need as many pesticides. But then to make a fabric out of bamboo, a lot of chemicals are used, and it's not always used in a closed loop system. So what happens a lot is that people make products from bamboo, and if it's really, really soft, then you should think about, okay, how is it made? Because to make it that soft, you often need really harsh chemicals. And if they don't say anything about it, often just like use new chemicals for each batch, and that's really, really intense on the environment. So we also have wool. Wool can be, of course, from different types of animals. You had this whole story about wool that's being made from the wool. The sheep would provide the wool. They had like this, they would be shaved off at the butt because that would be more hygienical. Of course, that's really a horror story, and it does happen, but there's stricter rules now on that. But like a lot of people think, oh, wool, that's it comes from sheep, it's natural, so it must be sustainable. But then it can be that there's a lot of harm. There's still a lot of harm in how it's being made. So sustainable natural products are hemp. Hemp is of course made from the plants, which we know really well in Amsterdam, and it is really a material that's really soft, and it's really it's antibacterial. So in that sense, you don't have to wash it as often as synthetic fabrics. Also, there's linen, which is also quite nice. It doesn't take that much water or pesticides to grow. So it also feels really nice. So yeah, linen is a good one. Then tencel is also called lyocell, and it's made from the eucalyptus plant. It's kind of the same like viscose, but then it's made from eucalyptus plants, and it's made in a they farm the eucalyptus plants in such a way that they make sure that's not they don't get rid of a whole forest because of the product. So they make sure it's sustainable. And also they make it soft in a closed loop system. So they reuse the chemicals, making it even more sustainable. It's really soft, the tencel. The last natural one we're going to zoom into is silk. And silk is being made from the small caterpillar, and it weaves this kind of cocoon, and that's where the silk is made from. And they say that silk is made from cooking those caterpillars. That's not really sustainable, but there's also a lot of silk that is not made by cooking caterpillars. So also there, make sure to read more on where it's made and what kind of silk is used. So for the synthetic ones, synthetic doesn't automatically mean it's unsustainable. Although every material and fabric I mentioned here in the dia is really it's made from like based on oil. So in that sense, it's super unsustainable to make. Also because you need a lot of chemicals to use it to make it soft. But then on the other hand, it's quite especially polyester and polyamide, like nylon, they are really strong fabrics. So like the life cycle of a product made from polyester and polyamide is quite long. So in that sense, it can be quite sustainable. Lycra, however, it's not that strong. Also, like I said, everything was made from oil, but viscose is made from wood, which sounds really good because you think like, oh, this wood, it's made from a tree, so then it's probably sustainable. But then most viscose is made from like the wood chips, and then they use a lot of harsh chemicals to make it softer. But that's not sustainable, and a lot of it comes from unsustainable farming or foresting. So that's also not good for the deforestation, of course. So I have a big overview here. Be sure to get in touch if you would like me to send this to you afterwards, or you can just pause the video, of course, afterwards. So another thing that is shown on the care label, besides the country of production and the materials, are the care instructions. So of course, it says the washing temperature and whether you should iron it. And like I already said, I always thought this was like this minor part of a product being sustainable or not. But we're discovering a lot of impacts that's being caused by how you take care of your products. For example, you have the linen, which is in essence, it's quite sustainable to make. But then it really wrinkles easily. So whenever you want to wear something from linen, you have to iron it. And that, of course, costs a lot of energy. And in that sense, if you add it to the production process, it can be, it really depends if it's still sustainable or more sustainable than other products. Also, you have like polyester, which apparently sheds like the microplastics if you wash it, which is really interesting because a lot of products are now made from this plastic alternative. They see like it's quite sustainable in that sense that they reuse plastic bottles, for example, to make the fabric. Then if you wash it, then these tiny pieces of plastic shed loose and they land in the water, and they end up in lakes. And so fish are really like it is found in fish, but also in the ground in cities. But that's quite impressive. So going back to the first, to the example, like zooming in on which one is sustainable and which one isn't. So this is the first shirt. It's made from 97% cotton. and 3% spandex, and it's made in Hong Kong. So at first you might think, okay, cotton, that's like, it's a natural material, so it might be sustainable. But now you know there's a lot of water that needs to be used for the production of cotton. And then made in Hong Kong. In fashion, they have this thing called the last stitch, and that means that the last country where they do something to make the products can be mentioned on this care label. So, for example, they can do a last stitch of on the clothing in Hong Kong, and then they can say it's made in Hong Kong. It's a typical thing that's being done for products made in Italy, because it really, Italy, of course, you have to think about luxury fashion. So a lot of brands do their last stitch in Italy, but actually the whole thing is made somewhere else. So this is the other t-shirt. It's from Lovejoy. It's made in Germany, 100% cotton. But then it says on the back of it, it says controleerd biologischer organic cultivation. So it means that it's certified organic cotton, and it also says focus on the good. So then you already know that it's they looked into the sustainability of this t-shirt. So zoom back. It was the right shirt, the one from 65.90 that was sustainable. This is another example. This is the dress. It's made from 100% viscose. You have to wash it at 30 degrees, and it's made in China. Well, it doesn't say anything about how it's being made, or it doesn't give you this feeling of the piece is unique or some extra info. So this should ring your alarm bells. On the other end, we have this short. It's made from 100% lyocell, which is the sustainable material tencel. It's made in Turkey, and also attached to it was this label saying, we believe in visionaries, we believe in you, we believe in us. Together we will fight to become the fairest fashion label in the world. Let's make fast fashion a thing of the past. So that would ring your bells, like, okay, this is a good brand. So this is also a thing. It's not only looking about the care labels, but also looking to the certificates or the other labels that are attached to the product. So these are some examples of products or labels you can find attached to sustainable products. It always says something about responsibility. It says something about fair trade, being organic. The middle one even has like this QR code that you can scan, and then you can see where it's being made or how it's being made, which is also quite interesting. Because the more transparent a brand is about where it's being made, the more sure you can be, of course, that it's good. Also, what happens a lot in fashion is greenwashing. So you have a lot of brands who think who want to hop on the sustainability train by doing not as much as actual sustainable brands. So a thing you can look for is certifications. For example, here we surrounded them. It's fair trade certified, and it's with the Seoul Association. And the other one is the Fair Wear Foundation, which means it's being made in a fair and in a fair way. And this one is the Global Organic Textile Standards. This is a really popular certificate. What you do have to keep in mind, though, is that in order to get a certificate, a brand has to pay for it. So it has to pay for someone to go to their production facilities and check whether it's being produced in a nice way and in a good way. So not all brands can afford such a certificate. So it doesn't automatically say that a brand is not sustainable if it doesn't have a certificate. It's a good way to distinguish like brands from each other, especially like bigger brands who try to jump on the sustainability train without doing anything. If those brands don't have a certificate, you can automatically assume it's greenwashing. So in conclusion, it's quite hard to discover whether a product is sustainable based on the care label, because it can tell you so much, but it also isn't that trustworthy. For example, with the last stitch and everything. So when in doubt, there's luckily many places you can go to check whether a brand is sustainable or not. In the Netherlands, we have Ranker brands, and of course, we have worldwide. We have Good on You, which gives you a ranking of how well a brand is performing in terms of sustainability, and also where you can find ethical clothing. In the Netherlands, we have this website called Eerlijk Winkelen, which is where you can find physical stores that sell sustainable products. And of course, you can go to our website, projectcc.nl, but we also have a UK and a German website. And what we do is we collect the items from over 150 different web shops in one place. So you can easily browse through it. We give you information on why it's sustainable. So you don't have to do all the research for every item you're looking for. You can just find everything in one place. So for example, if you're looking for a dress, you don't have to go through all these lists with all these brands and Google them yourself. You can just go to one place and find all the information. Then we redirect you to their web shop. So we have a Dutch website, a UK website, and a German website. Of course, if we really want to grow as soon as possible to the rest of Europe and maybe even the world, but that's quite ambitious. So yeah, I would love to get in touch, and if you have any questions about the topic or need help, feel free to reach out to us in any of these ways.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I don't see any questions from the viewers yet, but if people are watching this later, then they can, of course, use the information on the screen. I did have one question, I think. I was also quite shocked about the statistics in the beginning, by the way, that 1/3 of the environmental impact comes from washing and caring. I did not expect at all.
No.
And also that we only wear stuff 10 times on average is quite shocking.
Yeah.
I just looked at your website and I was surprised to see that it doesn't have to be that expensive. You could get a shirt for like 10 to 15 euros actually.
Yeah, that's true. So we started it as students as well. So we weren't, we are still not that rich that we can just buy anything we would like.
Not yet.
Yeah, but I think it's mostly a mindset change that needs to happen. So for me, I really enjoyed shopping and I really enjoyed buying new clothes. But for me, I really had to step back and think about every purchase decision I made. And if you buy less, but if you buy goods, then it feels better, and you're gonna cherish the clothing you actually have. You're gonna cherish it more. Just continuously willing to buy new things. Yeah,
well, I think I learned today that it's actually even more complex than I originally thought. So I'm really grateful for you putting in all the hard work and making it easy for us with this website. So that's really it is really the ease of online shopping, but then with the extra information for those people looking for it and trying to make make the world a little bit of a better place and more sustainable.
Yeah, I was really impressed. Like when we started, we thought we knew all the brands already, and then we were at 50 brands, and now we are at over 300 brands we have now.
Wow.
And it's still growing. There's so many brands out there who make like really nice items and in a fair and sustainable way. So I really like that.
That's great news. Well, thank you so much for your time. We have to wrap it up. I think the next session will be in about an hour, which is not about fashion, but it's actually about making heating and ventilation systems smart using AI and weather data. So it is about sustainability, but it will not be about fashion. So maybe you can tune in, maybe other viewers can tune in, and then I want to thank you for your time again, and we'll keep in touch.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, thanks a lot, Melissa. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.